up here time is I know I have the tools to be successful. I'm just not accessing it. So what gave you that invitation to access it?
I think it's here, but I also think it's here. You know, like if it's not here, then there's no way it's here. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because like if it's not in your heart, then you're not going to get out of bed every single day on those hard days, on those days where you don't want to do it, right? Because we all have that. There's no secret to that.
Mm-hmm.
If you tell me every day you wake up and you're like, yeah, I feel like $1 million. No, like you're going to go through ups, downs, this, that, and the others throughout those days. And some of us have tools, and some of us have tools, and some of us don't. But on those days, you have to find a way to break through. So for me, that was the biggest possible thing. Finding a way to break through on those days where you don't want to break through.
See, that's so critical, though, because so many people see those bad days as a reflection or judgment of themselves versus this is the challenge day. Like, you didn't look for your A+ day, right? Tell me about, I think the reason I wanted to have you on was twofold. One is, you know, we talk a lot about strategy. We talk a lot about swing. We talk about a lot of things in sports. But club fitting is so critical because if you don't do it right, you know, people find themselves in trouble. And a lot of my buddies that I play with are like, you know, they're changing heads and all this, and they're not getting fit. Why is it so important for the best players in the world to be fit properly?
Well, it's important for everybody. I mean, and granted, there is and I have to say this out loud because getting fit in today's game is expensive. It's a cost, right? It would be considered still, although essential, it's still a luxury item. You know, if you're going to go out and buy a brand new set of sticks, and if you take your game seriously, meaning you want to get better and you're going to invest your time in your game, and you're going to go out and buy new golf clubs and get them fit because it's only to your benefit to have tools that are made for you.
Hey, welcome back to Mental Game Live. I think it's been probably, a month since we've been on here, hasn't it, Bash?
It's been a while.
I think I've been to Rome and back, haven't I?
Yeah, you have.
That's crazy. Okay. So today I wanted to do today's Mental Game Live around lunchtime for a couple of reasons. And I know many of you are going to catch us on review or on hey, Brewer, Dr. Carter, don't you need to get back to work on Instagram Live? So those of you who follow me on Instagram Live, make sure you hit me up on Mental Game Live on my YouTube channel. But a couple of reasons why I wanted to do it during the week and during the daytime this week is what leads to this whole topic of what we're talking about this week, which is fear. And so this week on Wednesday, I have a surgery. I have a hip replacement surgery coming in. It's my second one, so it's not like I'm a newbie to this. But my nights are a little busy on Monday and Tuesday night this week. So I wanted to do it during the day. I wanted to try to get some good content out before I kind of go quiet for 10 days or so. So we're going to talk about fear. We're going to talk about my fear and my anxiety. Got something good coming, right? How about that, Bash? I mean, this part will be gone, right?
No, we're going to leave the not for resale on there. It'll add something to it.
Kick anxiety's ass, guys. It's coming. And we're going to have an actual date soon. But what are we shooting for? Like November 7th?
Oh, I did it backwards. Sorry. Yeah, November 7th.
Yeah, November 7th. So you're going to find out a lot more. And I'm really excited about the book. I'm really excited about the content of the book. I'm excited about it being a guide that can really speak to anxiety in a direct first-person approach of having been, go through it on a regular basis. And really kind of one of those things, I don't know if you've done it. I've gone back and as we proofread it again and again, I've read it. I'm like, it's actually pretty good. So it's always weird when you read your own writing. It's kind of like listening to your own voice.
Yeah. So, for sure. Definitely helps. I've read it like 5 times to try to get.
Is there one part of the book that you found to be the most helpful?
Can I talk about the 5 A's? Or
talk about the 5 A's. Yeah.
No, the 5 A's are good. It's just like when anxiety hits, It's more so like for me, it's almost like I'm fine, and all of a sudden I'm like, why do I feel like this? I'm just in a little mini panic. So it helps in a way to kind of figure out what's going on and get back to sanity.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, and kind of how we are right now in general is that we're all, drowning in demands and expectations. And I talk about in Kick Anxiety's ass, the whole idea about why anxiety develops is because we have these unrealistic standards and expectations, and we try to control it by being perfectionist. And what happens is we wear down our defenses. And the only fuel that we have is the fuel to face and give energy to an unknown threat. And as a result, over time, that anxiety just continues to cycle. But Bash, I get called time and time and time again by people who are suffering from anxiety. I walk fairways on the PGA Tour, and players pull me off to the side and say, "Hey man, listen, do you know what I can do for this?" And they're not my clients. They're just people who know that I talk a lot about it and what I communicate with. And I always make things personal for me. And, going into this surgery on Wednesday, it's been very difficult to sleep the last couple nights. It's
from pain or from
both. 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 The pain is there. The pain is uncomfortable, but the pain is worse when you wake up thinking about having to go into surgery. And I'll tell you, I don't worry about things like anesthesia. I don't worry about. I don't worry about. I don't worry about like what if. My answer on this is just to be frank. If I don't wake up from anesthesia, I'll never know about it. So, but the thing is, waking up from anesthesia. And last time I was in quite a bit of pain. Although Missy says, my wife says, you don't even remember it. I'm like, I do remember waking up and having a burning pain that was pretty bad. And then you just have the thud pain that's so intense.
Mm-hmm.
The thud is feeling like you have just a lot of pressure in your leg. The thing is, where I'm at now, I can't continue doing anything that I like to do. So it is a mandate to have to do it. However, I know that the next 3 weeks to 8 weeks is challenging. And there are so many things that I want to do that I know I'm limited to do, that I have to be off my phone. I can't be with people. And that's the anxiety for me, right? Is like the what if. And it's a fear. It's a fear. And
you can't be on your phone from
well,
medical
I'm not
reason?
quite, well, I could be on my phone, but I'm not quite with it. Like it took me about a week last time to clear mentally. Because the anesthesia and the pain medicine and stuff. And they say the pain's under better control now, but it doesn't mean I don't have fear. And so to me, fear, anxiety always hits when the mind is at its most quiet state, when I can't control it. And so, something we'll talk about today. I also want to give a little update on Rome. Rome was great. Saw a lot of really good conversation about the Ryder Cup. And we thought about doing a show right after that, but I was also like, I was still on Rome time and probably was going to be sound asleep in the middle of it.
Sure.
Rome was phenomenal. I think that there are some major things that we could do to improve the U.S. side's involvement in the Ryder Cup. One thing I hate to hear is that players are not invested and engaged. That could not be more false. Yeah. Players are actively engaged. They love to be there. They want to compete. But they also, it's a very artificial environment. So a player goes about his normal way of training to get ready, to prepare, and things are changed based on the nature of the event. I would suggest my answer would always be to go to every single player and say, what is it that you need to be at your best? And what can we do to build those environments? But if I was a college coach, I'd do the same thing. If I was, in every scenario, what do you want in your environment to be your best? But it is definitely a made for TV event. It is much easier to watch on TV than in person.
Everybody just swarms
3 to 4 homes.
That's what.
Now, Europeans, Americans had some great costumes. Nothing compares to the Europeans. I mean, dude, it's like first of all, it's hard enough to watch golf, and now you're doing it in an outfit that you can't see.
Yeah.
So let's just be honest. It's a drinking contest with golf around it.
Nice.
Yeah. So I get it.
Plays into.
It's kind of like an Ole Miss football game.
Exactly. Just happens to be a SEC football game right next to it.
Just right next to it, but it's a reason to drink. So anyway, that was a lot of fun. That going to Rome, that was an experience for me. It also hit me, when you're walking in the city of Rome and they're talking about things that have been there for 2,500 years, and you think you're important and you think that what you do really matters, that's building shit that lasts the teletime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Be epic. When I looked at the Colosseum, and I know it was built with indentured servants and slaves, but when you look at the quality of the engineering and craftsmanship and the quality of each and every arch that are almost identical in size and structure, come on. I mean, we still can't even get the right amount of French fries in a large fry order compared to a medium fry order, and they're building arches that are dominating.
Yeah.
Okay. That's remarkable, and it's still standing. So anyway, what's going on with you? Anything good over our lunchtime middle game live?
Just grinding away, trying to just filmed our promotional stuff last week. Was that last week?
That was last week.
Promotional
That'll run while I'm watching movies that I won't remember watching.
We are, just getting ready to go with that. I think it's going to be good. Not a whole lot going on, just plugging along that way.
Okay.
Just trying to, get the word out about it.
Yeah, that's
How
our
to beat
goal.
this anxiety thing.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a little bit more about kick anxiety's ass here in a minute. But so let's dive into fear today, and this is just a free-flowing conversation. So I got a text message or an Instagram message yesterday I thought was really good. Got an Instagram message from a guy who said, look, I was caddying for my buddy who was in Q school, had a 4-shot lead cushion going into the final round and lost it. And maybe we could talk about it. And so it hit me as to like, this is a fear-based approach. And he may say, I don't feel fear. I don't feel anxiety. I don't feel distress. But fear and anxiety are kind of like altitude. Pressure is like altitude. When you're at the top of a mountain, you may not feel it, but your body is processing it. If you try to exert yourself more in those environments, it gets you. Okay. And when we go into difficult environments, our mind's job is to identify threat, to identify risk, to identify the only things it knows in the face of uncertainty. And uncertainty, as I talk about in Kick Anxiety's Ass, is probably the greatest threat to the human mind. If I knew there was a bear outside of my window, I would no longer have fear. Okay? I would no longer have anxiety. I would have urgent need to do something. And what I mean by that is I would need to be in a scenario where I would have to have my fight or flight response. And the more that we put ourselves in our fight or flight response and we adapt to it, the better our model gets, our system gets. The problem is that none of us like to be in those scenarios. And what happens is we start protecting ourselves by trying to identify better and better with our thought radar, which I talk about in Mindside Manifesto, I believe. And which is our mind uses thought to scan the environment to look for potential risk. And when we're in a low stress environment, it's going to let a lot of potential risk go because there's no threat to us. When we're in a high stress environment or a more stress environment, we tend to increase the amount of sensitivity we have to that environment. So we tend to overanalyze, overattach, grab onto things that aren't necessarily true just in case, because we can't miss it. Okay. So what happens is it raises our threat level in our body, which raises our readiness by energy. Okay. Now fear and anxiety are building. Why? Because our mind is trying to face all the uncertainty that's out there with the only things it knows: energy, focus. And then the mind plays a game of it looks to the future by pulling from the past to try to use the tools. Well, anybody who's ever had any kind of anxiety in their life will pull from the past and only pull from the past things that they don't do well. Why? Because if you look at the past and go, oh my God, Bash, I freaking rocked that, you're going to get trucked. Okay? You called a lot of guys in bullpens. Bad bullpens equal what?
Bad bullpens equal
going out for a bad bullpen warm-up usually leads to what?
A better game.
A better game. Why is that?
A throw better in the game.
Why is that?
No idea.
Low expectations.
Yeah.
Focused on the moment. Okay?
Yeah.
When people have great pass, what happens is we start trying to control and push down the fear. So fear is great. Okay? It readies us, it gets us, but it's so uncomfortable. And the only way to deal with fear is to realize the value that fear has for us it's like the fire alarm or smoke alarm in our house. When it goes off, it doesn't mean it's actually telling you there's a fire. The alarm on our window is not actually telling us that the window is broken and an intruder that wants to do harm to you is coming through the house. It's just saying that it's identifying that there's a disconnect. And our job is to investigate it. But when our fear is high and our anxiety is high, what we do as athletes, as people, is we don't investigate. We get panicked by the anxiety, stressed by the moment, and instead of understanding it and putting it into an irrational state by accepting it and evaluating it, we instead, oh my God, we throw more energy after it, which causes more problems down the road. Sound familiar? Okay, so let's go back to playing for you. Biggest fear moment for you. Not David Price.
Not David Price. Fear. Can you get like very specific?
Yeah, or as a freshman when you came in, what were the things that you saw that were just like?
I would say the biggest fear that I always had was pitchers that had, and there were very few of these, but like who threw hard with no control, because there was going to go. I didn't mind velocity, like you can catch guys that throw 100, but like if they don't know where it's going, and you're expecting to set up on the right side of the plate, and then they throw it way over here, like
right.
Knowing how important it was not to have any wild pitches or pass balls, like that was always a fear, because like there's nothing I can do about that. But
right, so if you knew you had a guy that you were catching the next day that was a high velo guy, low command guy, your mind would race.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be terrible.
Did you ever turn that to what can I do about it?
Yes, I recognize that there's nothing that I could do about it. But
so you surrendered.
It's still my fault.
What's that?
It's still going to be considered my fault.
100%.
I can do about it. Yeah.
Right. That's responsibility. But you surrendered to the fact that you couldn't control his uncontrollable. Mm-hmm. You couldn't control his wildness.
Correct.
Okay. But do you think the pitcher could see that?
I don't know. I tried not to. I mean, it was like part of my job not to let them, is like to not show any negative emotion, because then that, again, then feeds into their issues, whatever they may be, whether that's anxiety on their part or just
think about when anxiety and fear is high. It does change our body. It changes the way we process information. And what happens is probably you were a little quick to react and a little quicker and on edge a little faster. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. When a person is comfortable, and when we watch and we see people in their skin when they're comfortable, they stand and they're almost what I call sitting in it. Mm-hmm. They're sitting in the shit for a little bit. They're really good at just knowing, like, I don't have to make it. And there was a brilliant, and I talk about it in Kick Anxiety's Ass, kind of in a different perspective, but there was a brilliant documentary that was done on NFL Films about the Malcolm Butler interception with the Patriots. But what was so brilliant about it, and I'm going to leave the story and the nature of the story to the book when you read it, but it was about, but there was, as the game was coming down the stretch and it was a high risk environment, everybody's talking more because energy's higher. There's more, don't lose this, don't do this. And the brilliance of Bill Belichick is he just stayed present with where he was and was thinking through his own thoughts. Okay, that's somebody with a lot of experience and awareness in the heat of the moment. When we're struggling with fear, a lot of times we give up our control and we become emotionally undisciplined to the control, to the fear. And we allow fear to make our decisions for us. So fear will impact our thoughts, our feelings, our actions in a really bad cycle. And what happens is it leads to bad actions. It leads to bad body language. It leads to quick reactions, quicker on ourselves, and so forth. And what happens is it cycles right back around. As opposed to realizing that I'm in a high fear, high anxiety state, I need to be more present with where I'm at. I need to sit and immerse myself in it and realize that the storms that I may be feeling internally and experiencing externally are just storms. They're not reflections of me. They're not telling me I'm wrong. I can manage this moment. So knowing that I got somebody who's wild is all I can do is bring them the most centered approach I possibly can to give them that comfort. Because as a pitcher, I will tell you, we could feel that because you can feel it when a guy was, because your movements were quicker. So it's kind of like, what does the ball always do at the end of a game? It always finds fear, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So the second baseman who's struggling with ground balls all day, that ground ball to end the game is going to him with a weird hop.
Yep.
Okay. An official in a football game will find the fear of the DB who makes the bad read versus being confident. And at the same time, what do we need in our world leaders besides better decision-making? We need confidence in the face of mistakes. Okay. And so instead of the what if, and I talk about it, I don't talk about it in Kick Anxiety's Ass, but we've talked about it forever. Fear and stress cause us to either be reactors, or responders. Reactors are people who see threat, fear on the horizon, and they do everything they can to shell themselves in to avoid the pain they're going to suffer. But responders do the opposite. Okay, so reactors see stress on the horizon, and their job is self-preservation. Responders see stress, pain, fear on the horizon, and they say, this is going to hurt, but what am I going to do to learn from myself to improve because of it? And I can show you time and time again businesses that were reactionary, companies, players, teams that were reactionary people who made knee-jerk reactions instead of well thought out, and responding organizations which made really good decisions despite having mistakes. One of the most popular and famous ones that's used in business is the Chipotle E. coli breakout. They had a terrible breakout of E. coli. A couple customers, I believe, died due to the E. coli, and it would have broken most companies. The owner of Chipotle and the board instead redevised a new E. coli eradication program that is the standard of dealing with fresh produce in the world and in fast food agencies. That's responding to it. And yes, while the events are tragic and sometimes predetermined, meaning predetermined is that the answer's already been is solved, we have to face it. And that's where fear is, how we have to start using fear in our own way. So what am I going to do? Well, as I'm walking in, so I'll tell you a quick story. You know how important my dad is in my life, and my dad passed away 12 years ago. And November 7th, 2009, he had a massive surgery that started the downfall. And maybe it was 2010. And we were down in Florida, and he had a massive surgery that morning. And as we woke up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the hospital, he just kind of walked in. And I remember walking in behind him, and I was looking at him. I was like, he may be nervous, he may be stressed, but he's walking in like a boss, like he's ready to take on whatever's coming his way. And I carry a keychain of his that he flew with every single day when he was flying. It's a cross of St. Christopher. And it's on my keychain. And leading into my last surgery 6 years ago, he had passed away. And my mom had given me one of his jackets that I liked. And I was like, I'm going to wear this jacket. And when I got to the hospital that morning, I put on the jacket. And when I put my hand in the pocket had the intake instructions of the morning that he walked into his first surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I was like, he wore the same jacket in. And it hit me. And I grabbed that cross of St. Christopher that's on my keychain, and I said, walk in like a boss. The best way that I've ever learned to face fear and what led to kick anxiety's ass was to walk in, face it like a boss. What's it going to do? Break me? Never. Okay. So I use these examples, and I want people to understand in our life, when we face fear, we face stress, we face shit in our life, face it like a boss. It's the only way you can kick anxiety's ass.
Like it.
All right. Any advice for me trying to find a school for sports psychology after getting my bachelor's in psychology? Came from Instagram Live. Go get a doctorate in clinical or counseling psychology and then specialize in sports while you're in training or afterwards. That's the best advice I can give you. Boom. Okay. I see any questions. What questions we got over here? Because
Can we go back? Can we revisit the story real quick?
yeah.
So you may have answered this, but do you think some of your like fear or anxiety about the surgery goes back to that day?
No, because my fear always when it comes to this kind of thing, whether it was getting my wisdom teeth out, is how I'll feel afterwards.
Gotcha.
I'm such a emotional control guy that I try to keep my emotions under control so much. I don't like that feeling of being out of control. And
Yeah.
when I come out of surgery, I come out of stuff, I don't like to feel out of control. I don't like to sleep will be bad for about 3 weeks. I know that. I already prepared for that. Like I won't sleep good for probably 3 weeks because you just can't. I'll sleep in the chair better for 6 hours than I will do anything else. But that's that's the biggest issue.
Gotcha.
So, no. I knew his surgery was high risk. He did well. I mean, they did what they could. But yeah, I also think that this surgery is, knock on wood. Listen, there's a lot of people who go through a lot worse shit. And so I can face this. I can face it. I'm also thinking about how good I'm going to feel after. It's been 10 years of hip pain, whether it's left hip and right hip.
Yeah.
A long time since I've been pain-free in my hips. So I'm ready to get it over with.
Does it affect the golf swing at all?
Right. This one does not affect my golf swing. Although yesterday it kind of I played as much as I could this weekend because I won't be able to play for 2 months. The fatigue is in there. This one hurts more down the muscles in my right leg and in my back. So I start turning as much. The left one, when I had that one done, I couldn't get to my left side.
Okay.
But if I play golf, I'm pretty much incapacitated for the rest of the day.
So,
and then this morning I woke up and it feels okay.
Yeah.
But if I go out and if I try to go out and hit balls today, and then tonight I could barely walk around the house. So sucks. I had a question about on Instagram Live. What do you do to avert the inevitable 2 in baseball and in life? I'm gonna leave that one up to you, Bash. What do you think?
To the inevitable 2 is to can we do it like we always talk about in golf, that the range is a different environment than the game.
100%.
So like the game mound or like the mound that you warm up in the bullpen is a different mound. Like it's a different mound, so you need to get used to that. But also, 2, I never bought into the umpire having a say in that in the inevitable 2 because like you're not like you can't control what the umpire is going to say.
But they're an element of randomness.
Yeah, so just like throw the ball where you want to throw the ball. Like,
well, that's easier said than done. From the guy in the stands, just throw strikes. Or my third baseman. Hey, just get it over the plate, man. Just get it over the plate. Yeah, no kidding.
Pitching's like the easiest thing. Just
Just
how do you miss that target?
How about this? How about just get the bunt down?
Just get the bunt. Jeez, how do you miss that? Like I was watching the American League Championship Series, and guy had 98 down the middle with the bases loaded.
Yeah,
swung and missed. How do you miss that?
Yeah, it's right there.
Well, because it's 100 miles an hour right down the middle. Like, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
So I would say, just going back to the original, look at it like two different environments. Is what I always said. Just because a lot of times they are different environments.
They are. So how we did that, and I think in life happens, whenever we change environments, things get difficult. Know the things that are central and core to you that are the most important, right? Typically, when we get into a different environment, something that's hard, we try to do more because we think we should be more than what we are. We're good enough as we are. So identify and create the things that you know. All right. So to beat the inevitable two in baseball, we threw fastballs away. We threw breaking balls over the plate. We didn't try to throw changeups coming out of the gate unless you had a master changeup. In golf, I try to have players stick with what the swing they know, trying to hit the shot shape they like, and favoring, kind of to follow a Scott Fawcett approach, favoring the decade approach, which is putting the ball in position versus trying to need to be special to test yourself over the course of a day. And in life, inevitable too, or building a plan, doing the things that you can do, executing, having an organizational framework in mind. So when life is hard, that we have a centered and trusted, anchored approach to come back to. It's a way to do it. So,
who asked the inevitable two question?
I don't know. It's a good question. Brady asked any names you can recommend any place that offers a PhD. Just go online and look for them. Trainer Joe, William Sabatini. Cool. Hopefully I didn't report the comment. If I did, Joe, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying.
Got kicked off Instagram.
You got kicked off Instagram for that. He's like, what the hell? I asked a great question.
Please.
Steve Wilson asked, what are three things a European team did well and the USA team could learn from, improve, or implement? Listen, okay, let's not make a big difference. USA got beat because they got beat on the first day. And they got beat in foursomes, which is alternate shot, which the Europeans are normally great at. They play a lot. And they compete in that. And usually what happens with the home team is the home team will make the home team will play off the crowd and have that emotion and during putts make putts. I know in the match that John and Sam played against each other, I think John chipped in 3 times, or maybe he chipped in 3 or 4 times in the first day. Okay. Match play does that, right? And it makes a big differential. European team is not closer than the American team. I think there was a comment by Justin Rose that says we try to put the best players together, whether they're friends or not. Well, they tried that on the USA team years ago by putting Phil and Tiger together, and there was no chemistry. Look, they got beat. It came down the wire. USA came back. It's a very fine line between great and not. I think what the European team did was build a strategy on the golf course that maximized some of the things that met their elements. But that's what you do when you're the home field. Somebody said, well, we should go to a neutral site. And it's like, but then you're losing the nature of it. The European team looks to see what they had really good, and they built a course with a couple drivable par 4s and put short game in play. In France, they put driving accuracy in play. Brilliant. Okay, it's a strategic development. And guess what will happen in Bethpage? Bethpage will be a gauntlet of long in the rough, and it'll favor the Americans. And so the brilliance of it is, I think the only thing that I would have said for the USA team, and probably a couple of my guys would have been like, well, yeah, you would have killed me at that point. They should have played Wentworth. They should have taken, which would have been a high-level competition, which most of the European players did, and a lot of them finished in the top 10. And then from that, they should have gone to a retreat for a week in southern France or Spain and played a lot of golf, and then met their wives and everybody in Rome. They should have also been able to bring whatever coach they needed to get to be the best and not have limitations on that, but that's for something else. So You should never look at a player-coach relationship, but I mean, listen, it'd be like telling Belichick you can't go in the locker room before the Super Bowl. Like, okay, whatever.
Do you think I didn't follow it as closely just for whatever reason, but the moneyballing of the course by the Europeans came to fruition?
Americans had their own. Americans had their own. One of the things that's interesting though is they don't do a lot of psychological profiling, and that's one of the things that look. I work with coaches and teams all the time about putting players together in certain situations. You don't play the 9 best, you play the best 9, and I think sometimes that gets lost because of statistics. We get so moneyballish. We can say whatever we want about Moneyball with regards to the Oakland Athletics. They still limited themselves in their overall draft prospects. Okay. There are some great teams. I mean, Los Angeles Dodgers are a brilliant Moneyball organization with a massive budget. And yet they still, from what I understand from somebody on the inside, as the game is going on, decisions come from upstairs down into the managerial coaching. You got Dave Roberts, who's a phenomenal baseball guy. Let him coach. Okay. But there's a reason why they keep losing in the postseason. The only World Series they won is a COVID-shortened season. Mm-hmm. So you look at what's happening with Arizona. Arizona's playing on a roll. They're playing with a lot of momentum. Texas Rangers they suck. They lost 11 games in a row, and now they've got it back. Houston always plays. Dusty Baker, come on, give me a break. Put that guy on the Mount Rushmore of some of the best managers in baseball history. Okay. Dusty Baker is a dude in the dugout, and you can be a woman. I mean, I know there was a female assistant coach interviewed for the San Francisco Giants. That's awesome. You can be a dude and be a woman. I don't care. You just have to understand the nuances of the game, right? And every coach has to understand the psychological makeup. And I think sometimes we lose that because golf is such an individual sport. It's hard to cram them into a team sport one time every other year. And so from that, I would have probably looked at him and said, we're going to build you your model the way you want. There was, one of the things I said last year at the President's Cup, there was a player who did not like the food and they had to keep bringing in Chipotle. I'm like, why would you not have a Chipotle trailer right outside the American locker room?
Yeah.
They eat Chipotle. These guys on the road will eat Chipotle everywhere they go. So now we're going to give them filet and fettuccine. The dude ain't going to eat it. Okay. If they want freaking In-N-Out burger, give them In-N-Out burger on the range. They wouldn't. They'll eat that later. But give them Chipotle. Have a Chipotle from Chipotle, a food truck parked right outside there. I mean, this is where it just blows my mind. But the other one that gets me, right, like I said, is if they have 3 coaches with them week in and week out, why tell them they get 1? That European team coaches, they had 4 or 5 coaches from what I understand. America's got 1. That just makes no sense. Now, I wasn't needed, so that didn't come from me. That's just something I looked at from in general. So I had a question on Instagram Live about what are the best elements of Suckville that can apply to anybody in their performance. Look, the whole issue about Suckville is that where we think we should be and where we are at a mismatch. And the thing about Suckville is your attitude changes your perception of your reality. Change your attitude and perception, and you can grow yourself out of it. Kick Anxiety's Ass, available for purchase November 7th. Please stay involved with me on my social media and everything that we can do. I want to get this book into the hands of every single person. Yes, the title is a strong title, but it is true. You can kick anxiety's ass. As a sufferer and as a practitioner of anxiety, listen, it doesn't need to own us anymore.
It tells the story, though.
About?
No, the title. I mean, there's no disputing what we're trying to do with this book here.
Well, so when I started writing the book, you and Logan, my daughter, who helps on social media, were like, this needs to be strong. And I wrote it and I put it in the working title and then I took it out. And I think you said, why did we change the title? It needs to.
Yeah, your working title was Kick Anxiety's Ass.
Yeah.
And you wanted to change it to something else like, Logan said that too. We were like, no, just keep it.
But I'm like, I don't want to have ass. And although one of my favorite books of all time is The No Asshole Rule. And also,
it's in the Bible, dude. Come on. Jesus said it. So
that is true. That is true. So that's why I want it to be strong. Like we do not need to cower down in front of the monster. We need to stand up and be willing to swing our sword. And anxiety grows because it's kind of like bacteria. It needs to be pushed in the corners. And when we stand up and own it and stand up in front of it, and look, I've said this, I've had panic attacks, I've had severe anxiety, I've had GAD, I've had all of that. It helps me stay connected to my players and my people, but it comes at an expense. And what I wanted to do and what helped me is when I turned the scope and started saying, I can stand up in front of it and it's not going to knock me down. And some of it was reading Ryan Holiday's work, The Obstacle is the Way and the Ego is the Enemy. Some of it was reading Mark Manson's book, Susan David's. But the biggest influence to me was Stephen Hayes and Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. And I talk about it in the book. I want this book to be something that people understand that can give them some tools. But if you're looking for the 5 steps to eliminate anxiety from your life, buy my book, don't read it. But if you want to get better, buy my book and read it.
Well, I think it's very fitting too, because if it were that easy to get out of it, I feel like a lot of people would be out of it or be out of the situation. Like, I never looked at having anxiety as an easy thing to get out of.
No.
So it's like, I think it's very fitting that it's very real life, and it tells you how miserable it can be if you're someone out there who's never experienced this at the level that we're talking about. Because
I'll give you a funny example. Last night we were talking at dinner, and Missy and I were sitting there, or maybe it was lunch or something. I said, I'm just getting really anxious. It was lunch. I said, I'm just getting pretty anxious. She goes, I understand that. She goes, but just, put it out of your head for a while. And I'm like, God, I wish I could be like you. Put it out of your head.
I can't stand that.
Yeah, but she can. That's what makes
How do you do that? How do you do it?
I mean, if she and I were the same, we would be probably doomsday preppers. Okay. But she's not. She can compartmentalize beautifully. And I give her, I'm like, God, I wish I could do that. She's like, I just don't think about it. Like, what it's going to happen whether you think about it or not. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but if I think about it more, I just need to know more. And, her being a nurse, and I'm like, okay, what do I expect this? What do I expect that? And of course, now she's got her energy is up getting ready. Like, what are we going to eat on these days? What am I going to cook? What do you need? Stuff like that. So she doesn't call that anxiety. She calls that just getting stuff done. But I'm like, it's kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's just mine runs an internal script in my head.
Yeah.
So
same.
All right, I'm going to go eat some lunch because I got some appointments coming soon. Listen, we will be back on Middle Game Live. I'm not sure when. Please follow me on social media and stay with us and crank out some videos while I'm out. And when I come back, I'll be have 2 bionic hips. We'll do it. So y'all be good on Instagram Live. Stay up with us. November 7th. Kick anxiety's ass.